coming into the meeting. Wendy will continue to admit people to the meeting. But thank you all so much for joining us today. And thank you for helping us to celebrate this World Species Congress Reverse the Red that really was held on the 15th of May. But this is a continuation of that because we really wanted to be part of that and to also be able to really represent nocturnal animals in this. So I'm going to share my screen now. And Wendy, you're able to admit people, right? Still? Because I was admitting loads of people.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And Wendy, can you give me a thumbs up if you could see my screen, okay?
Yes, I can
Great.
see clearly your screen, Profana.
Okay, so thank you so much again for coming. I'm just going to open this event by talking a little bit about 25 years of technological changes I've seen studying Asian lorises. Let me make that smaller. And also a little bit about how I got into nocturnal primates and what the information was available to me to study nocturnal animals at that time. And again, I would just like to thank Wendy. We are the Little Fireface Project and Yayasan Konservasi Satwa Nocturnal Nusantara, Endangered Nocturnal Animals Foundation, and mainly based on the island of Java in Indonesia. And a lot of the people that are speaking today are our partners working on nocturnal animals and solutions to studying them. Okay. So I just want to point out equipment has changed over time. And if you have a look at some of these pictures of studies of nocturnal primates from the past, we could see things are really, really different. Even the photographs are different. In this first picture you see in the 1960s, in order to study tarsiers in Borneo, Karsten Niemitz actually had to build a cage around the forest to contain the animals to be able to see what they were doing. And this is something, you know, now in a really large rainforest, we'll see today we have a lot of new technologies we could do that without having to build a fence. If you look at the next picture from Gabon of two research assistants of French primatologist Pierre-Charles Dominique, they're wearing huge pit helmets with really large headlamps. And what is around the side of that man's body is a battery case of liquid alkaline batteries that were needed to power these head torches to be able to study the animals at night. And as people would walk, some of that liquid would spill on them and give them acid burns. So it was a really crazy, committed way in the 1960s and early 70s to study the nocturnal primates. And here we have Simon Bearder, who is the head of our Nocturnal Primate Research Group, which is an international group working to study nocturnal primates all across their range. And this picture is only from the 1990s, but you could see his very large microscope to record the calls of bush babies, and the Petzl headlamp we used for a long time with its red filter that's a little bit more advanced than what you see in that picture from the 1960s, but still we've got better things today. Here's me, a very blurry picture of me in 1995 when I did a study of slender lorises in India in the Ayalur Interface Forestry Division, which incredibly last year became part of the Kadavur Slender Loris Sanctuary, the first ever sanctuary for slender lorises in India. And we conducted the first study of the behavioral ecology of Loris lidicarianus, the Mysore slender loris. And things were very different then. So this is in my own lifetime, around 25 years ago. We had to stay out 12 hours a night if we wanted to be able to see the animals. There was no option of going and coming back because we had something like radio tracking. You had to find the animal and stick with it as well as you could. We laminated cards with numbers on them I had 1 to 150. And every time an animal moved tree, I would put the next number on the tree it moved to. It meant I had to go back the next day and measure the distance between every card, the compass orientation between every card, the slope between every card in order to actually track where those animals had gone. And so that's very different than what we do today. We already knew that nocturnal animals can be observed much better when we're using red lights, but red fancy torches were, again, not really available. So we used this glass paper, which you could see there in a roll. It's often used in theater, and we would cut circles out and be able to watch the animals. And we had these Petzl head torches, which were great in the day. They had a halogen bulb, which was relatively bright, but frequently with the types of batteries that were available, they might have lasted 30 minutes to 2 hours. And 30 minutes was if we brought the local Indian batteries. 2 hours is if we got batteries, energizers imported from outside. And it meant that we had many, many batteries that we were changing all night long. It was really unecologically friendly. And we had huge piles of batteries at the end of that field season. So some very strange, different ways. It was much more difficult to study nocturnal animals then. And in fact, in that field station, we had very limited electricity. So there wasn't even possibilities to recharge things. And if we look how we actually did the work with all those compass orientations and all those measuring by hand, this was a little 6-month report I sent home to my field research funders from my PhD. I had to post it. There was no email. There was no internet really then. And here we are with every individual by different color and their overlapping home ranges, as we were able to tell just following them for 12 hours and looking at things like their average path length, their average distance traveled. And if we wanted to look at something like distance traveled, we had to remember how many times they went back and forth between trees. There were no GPSs. There were no tracking, even the tracks you get with your GPS. So things were very, very different then. Also, if we wanted to just know what these animals looked like, even at night, we had to very carefully look at things like the shape of their face mask, the wounds to their ears, things about their behavioral characteristic, their personalities, and that helped us to distinguish the animals. So again, no microchips, no radio collars. By the time I moved on in 2001 to 2005, working in Sri Lanka on the red slender loris, Loris tardigratis, we were working in the south of Sri Lanka on this tiny species weighing only 130 grams. And those tiny little radio collars from BioTrack at the time were only 9-gram radio collars. They were quite good. They lasted about a year. It was really challenging to find a study site where we could catch the animals. Lorises notoriously don't go into traps. We had a lot of problems with animals chewing the collar off. They're actually much more social than anybody ever thought they were. So they're co-sleeping animals, or they would chew the collars off. We also were working in a country that had had a lot of military unrest, in the 1980s, going on now off and on into the 1990s. And so it was a challenge just to get the permission to do the radio tracking and to get a signal that was not used by the military. So we had to get a very unusual radio signal for these collars that didn't overlap with anything. And again, some other challenges when you're trying to randomly catch animals, we didn't actually get enough to be able to work out their social organization. So you need a long-term study and tracking enough animals when you're out at night to actually know what's going on. And I'll get onto that a bit more in a moment. Moving on to Xanthonycticebus pygmaeus. This is the southern pygmy loris, which we studied for a couple of years in Cambodia. This was a really huge forest reserve where it was pure camping, no electricity, so sleeping in hammocks under a sort of a shelter in the forest. And these animals were, again, very hard to catch and re-catch. So even if you were able to catch one, getting the collar off later was difficult. There was a lot of hunting in the area, with hunters catching the animals with the collars. The GPS signal was often weak in the forest, so we had to use walkie-talkies back in the day. And if your antenna didn't work, you might have to walkie-talkie the other team with a better antenna to come find your animal again. And although the GPS signal was good, we needed a trail system, which you could see we had to drink lots of fizzy drinks and lots of beer to cut the aluminium tins into lots of circles with reflective tape of different shapes that marked the trails that we were using. So again, although technology was better by then, it still wasn't, again, what we have today. So we start to see things changing even in this 10-year period. We started working in Java in 2010 with released animals. And at the time we started working there, the saying was, if a macaque went into a rescue center, within 7 days, it could be released. If a loris went into a rescue center, within 7 days, it was dead. So we really didn't know much about the behavior of this species in the wild. The terrain was very challenging. And animals were being released for many years in Indonesia without tracking. And when we finally did track them, we found out there was a 90% mortality rate. So this was a really important aspect of radio tracking, is looking to see what happens to the animals after they're released and try to consider why it was happening. And in fact, a lot of these animals were caught in lower altitude forests and froze to death. There wasn't a lot of gum, which is the main food of slow lorises, available at the release site, but not many people realized they ate tree gums at that time. And also, just studying these animals in captivity in the rescue center, my PhD student at the time, Richard Moore, who's pictured there in the middle, he found that the calls were disappearing at 16 kilohertz, which was the range of his microphone. So not knowing these animals actually communicated a lot in ultrasound, he had a whole chapter of his PhD that he wasn't able to complete because the calls were cut off. So again, the technology is getting better, but having a misunderstanding of the behavior of the animal also could mean you collect some strange or incomplete data. So knowing that a lot of these animals were dying, knowing that the IUCN Red List says in order to do translocations, there should first be a long-term study of the species in the wild. It's the first IUCN translocation criteria for a translocation. If you don't know what it does in the wild, you shouldn't be releasing it. We decided to do a long-term study, but we had to pick a place, knowing now from these previous studies how difficult it is to catch lorises, recatch them. They don't go into traps. We picked an agroforestry site, which actually they can be very common in if the food resources are there. There are a variety of tree species at this site. As you can see, that's labu. It's a kind of pumpkin, a Cucumberaceae, interspersed with trees, many of which have gum and nectar, which are the main foods of the Javan slow loris. But it's also very high altitude. So we started getting interesting information about animals going into torpor. And also we're very interested in, for example, the effects of electric light at night. And you can see when you're working on an incredibly populated island, at night, your view are lights all around the distance, even on these very remote volcanoes in a certain sense. And the long-term study allowed us to get to know their behavior in a lot more detail. So some of the equipment we're using nowadays, and this is going to go on to what some of our keynote speakers will be discussing, are the use of red lights and thermal cameras. I've always been deeply passionate about using red lights for studying nocturnal animals, knowing in my own face, when somebody looks at me with a white light, how dazzled and blinded I am. I can't imagine how nocturnal animals with their sensitive eyes feel. And we found out in the very first year of our studies, with animals that were habituated with white or yellow lights, how they had many more freezing behaviors, and they never were as settled as animals that were habituated and always observed with red lights. And now we also have the advantage of thermal cameras. And it allows, like, this is really seeing the unseen. These animals do move in very dense bamboo patches, etc. And when they go to sleep, we knew they were sleeping together, but they all went into the bamboo. And now with the thermal camera, we could see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 animals all cuddling, playing, grooming together in the bamboo with the aid of these really amazing thermal cameras. We also were finally able to get really great methods to do the radio tracking. The first 2 years of our study, we had all sorts of problems, even to the extent realizing that once you order radio collars, the battery already starts to drain, so you have to use them. Like, you have to use them as soon as possible. And when I had changes in field station coordinators or field teams, and we didn't have a really good system for labeling our radio collars, an old radio collar would be put on a new animal, and that collar might go dead in a few months. So we have a great system for coding every collar that comes into the field station, knowing if we need to take a collar off, for example, a dispersing animal, how much time that collar has left. We have a really great system of putting a tarpaulin on the ground. We have a fishing tackle box with all the things we need to measure, and we can measure and collar these animals in about 12 to 15 minutes. We have chili on the antenna that low-tech has made for us. And even if an animal has been wearing a collar now for 12 years, maybe their child or their offspring doesn't know about it. Maybe a new partner doesn't know about it. And if they bite that antenna, they don't want to bite it again. We use cable ties on our collars, which allows for really quick attachment, shrink wrap, which prevents injury to the animals all the way around the collar. There can be a little gap. You have to make sure the neck is completely protected. If you use the wrong kind of glue, it could make your antennas crack and fall off. So we need the right type of waterproof adhesive to secure the collar. And also, because we measure our animals comprehensively every time we catch them, we know actually the neck of our slow loris species kind of levels off at around 6 months. So we are able now to track really young animals, which we were afraid to track before in case they did go off with a collar on. And we also are so good at catching and tracking the animals, we're now able to even track younger animals and also putting some colored tape on our collars. So if animals are side by side or in a group, we can identify them. So through this method, we now know in our area, we have lorises using home ranges of 6 or 7 hectares. There's not a lot of space when you're working in an agricultural area, so this is quite huge. Whereas lorises have been studied, for example, in Malaysia or in our work in Cambodia, we had them using in the forest home ranges of up to 30 hectares. So they can move much further than anybody thinks. And our dispersing animals still do move up to several kilometers away from the main field site. And the nightly travel distance can still be a few kilometers, including the ups and downs and back and forth. And once you start to be able to collar everyone, you see them grow up, you see them develop, you see them find a mate and have their offspring. We can have a mated pair with up to 4 individual young in one family, which nobody ever expected of what we would call a solitary nocturnal primate. And this image too shows implementation of bridges, which one of our speakers will be talking about, and how putting canopy bridges in areas that have deforestation can also help to increase the usage of the core areas of these animals. We also can attach accelerometers to our collars, and these have been incredible for letting us to really see the unseen. We know that the animals are really active during the rain. There is no doubt they are active all night. I've seen so many speakers working on nocturnal animals going, we went to bed at 12 because the animals aren't active after 12. It's maybe you're tired, but the animals aren't, and our animals are active all night long. And what we were able to tell with 2-axis accelerometers, which were ActiWatch little tags that you see one of the animals wearing a big round disc, they really are truly nocturnal. And if they have a little bit of disturbance in the day, they have a nap in the night. But otherwise, they are really active those 12 hours of night and go to sleep in the day. Our new 3-axis TechnoSmart accelerometers, they're really tiny and they're absolutely incredible. And we've got really high accuracy with feeding behaviors, locomotor behaviors, and resting behaviors. And we're now working to nuance the models for these accelerometers even more to be able to see what these animals are doing when we can't see them. We're also going to hear about sound recording today. And I must say, back from the day with those giant microphones and tape recorders with lots of cassette tapes, we now can just go around with our iPhone, follow the animals, and we've really been able to reveal how social these animals are through their frequent, hourly, several times an hour, ultrasonic calls communicating to each other. And once we are able to identify these calls, we have to work out that it's a loris making them, what the function of the call is. We can use the song meters around the field site and new field sites to actually look for presence of slow lorises, which is what we're going to be doing in an island-wide survey. There's so many other technologies we're using. We're using some GPS collars on civets. We're going to hear about camera traps today, which we use to monitor bridges, monitor other animals at our site. Using hobo data loggers, for example, which is what is on the left-hand side of my screen, can tell what the microclimate is in each area of the field site. And we're now going to be employing also some genetics with the minion or the minion and looking at doing some sequencing on site. And we're starting that work in captivity to be able to look at, for example, parentage, etc., in the wild. I just want to say, if you're interested in publishing your work on nocturnal animals or primates, if you're here and this seminar has inspired you, I'm co-editing a special issue of the MDPI journal Animals, Surviving in the Dark, the Complexities of Nocturnal Animal Behavior and Adaptation. And I would just really like to encourage you to submit to our special issue. And you can email me and if you're interested. I'm also the editor-in-chief of Folia Primatologica, the world's oldest primatological journal. And so if you're here just because you love primates and you're not nocturnal, do consider a special issue for us or submitting a paper to us. I'd like to thank all the funders who are currently funding Little Fireface Project. We're on all the social medias. You can learn more about what we're doing and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And we're putting up lots of methodological videos on YouTube at the moment as well. And we've just had a big update of our website, and you can have a look at that as well. I know I've gone a little bit over time, but it was so much to talk about for 25 years plus, and I can still answer any questions. Otherwise, we move on to the next speaker, and I'll stop sharing my screen. Maybe stop
Thank
sharing.
you, Prof. Anna, for the amazing presentation. And from that presentation, I can see like long time ago, the research of collecting the data in the field, like with really not modern technology. And now we can have that all, and we can using that all for our research, for collecting the data in the field. And yeah, now if any participant in this room have any question about what Professor Anna already present to us, it's like, it's your time. We open the question and answer today. So if any question, you can raise your hand directly, or if you shy, you can put it on the chat box, or like if your connection is not really good, you can also put it on chat box. While we're waiting for the question from the participant, Prof. Anna, probably I want to ask about little things. Probably like, because you already like doing research in the field since 1995, 55. So what is motivated you and like making the long-term research until now? Like why you always like motivated to doing this research?
It's a very good question, and I think you just need to find something you're really passionate about, and you love it. And I discovered that I really love lorises. I really love nocturnal animals. And actually, I love a lot of other nocturnal animals. We're going to hear about a little bit about colugos today, all the civets, all the bats. They're just so unknown. They're so underrepresented. Every time you go out at night, you can learn something new. You see the interaction between those species. You hear their calls. You frequently see them together. Everyone always says they're all solitary, but it's they're just communicating in different ways. And I think the fact that in this world today, and just even with the slow loris, we're still learning new things. So every time we go out, every time a student goes to a new country, we're still learning new things, and it's so exciting. And they are really endangered. So it's my passion that the nocturnal animals, all of these brown, cryptic, tiny, sometimes scary looking animals get conservation attention as well as the big charismatic species.
Okay, thank
I think
you.
you're welcome to go on to the next speaker, because I was 5 minutes over. I was nodding.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Anna, for the introduction about the equipment that we're using in the field. That is a really good introduction for our next keynote speaker. So thank you for your time and your presentation. So now we continue with our second keynote speaker, that is Paul Howden-Leach. Hello, Paul. Yeah.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. I hope you good also.
It's strange, because I've stumbled across something which I have got on my desk, which Anna gave me in Malaysia in about 2019, I think we were. And I've just stumbled across it on my desk just now. So I'm like, oh, excellent. Anyway, sorry.
You can take this room, Paul. This is your time.
Thank you very much. Right, I shall just share my screen. Hold on a minute. There we go. Hopefully you can see that.
Yes.
So in this talk, I thought I'd go down a specific problem, an issue which is kind of a global issue, which is looking at bats and wind farm sites. And basically using acoustic monitoring to see if we can actually come up with some solutions for bat collisions at wind farm sites. A little bit about who we are and who I am. So I work for an organization called Wildlife Acoustics, and we build sound recording products basically, and we record anything. We specialize in birds and bats, but it can be anything. It can be slow loris, any acoustic sort of sound that you can think of. We tend to record that. We're kind of quite passionate about what we do, and we like to listen to people in the field, because the people in the field help us design our equipment. We're constantly trying to innovate and come up with new ideas basically to help researchers in the field. And there's been a mass evolutionary change. I know Anna's just been talking about battery life of various pieces of equipment. If we go from sort of 2007 to 2024, the battery life of this thing would be about 100 hours on 4 big, massive batteries. And this is now over 1,200 hours on 6 little batteries. So you can see that just the evolution of the equipment has meant that we can be more productive in the field and answer new questions, and also not be there so much as well, which is kind of quite nice. The thing I want to focus on, though, is dealing with one of these pieces of equipment, which is this element, this bit here called the Smart, which was developed in 2022 and is out in the field. And it's addressing a significant problem. Oops. And the problem is bat mortality with wind turbines. So bats strike turbine blades and cause mass mortality. There are other ways that they suffer with wind turbines. One is that they get dragged along by the slipstream of the blades. The blades go around. The other one is a biometric trauma, which is a bit like if you go scuba diving and you come up too quickly, it's getting the bends. So there's a pressure difference between the front and the back of the turbines. So they have this hemorrhaging, which is not a good way to go. And within that, we've kind of, not ourselves, but looking at the research, bat species interact with turbines in a number of ways. They fly through them if they're commuting. They investigate, they feed around it. And in some rare cases, we've found bat roosts in turbines. And to prove that it is an issue, I've got a very short 3-second video. Watch on the left-hand side of your screen. You'll see what happens. Boof. So we do know that there's a huge problem with this. So we put our heads together and tried to come up with a solution. And the solution is called a smart system. And this was designed solely to tackle this one problem. So this is a private company that's working on the back of university research in order to try and come up with a solution. And it's basically a couple of huge microphones and a Linux computer. And just to sort of talk about it very, very briefly on what it does and what it can do, is you put the microphone at height where the turbines are rotating, and we can monitor remotely whether bats are interacting with the turbine. They're putting out an ultrasonic call, they're high up, nothing really is making any other sort of noise up there, so we can actually pick up their signals. In addition to that, because we can speak to this system remotely, we can tell the system to do what's known as smart curtailment. In other words, to switch a turbine off when a bat turns up. Now, this is kind of a new thing. No one's ever done this before. But the idea is that it's a flexible system and it can fit in with lots of other technologies. And the thing with the technology, it kind of means that we have to do more within the product in order to make it kind of viable, I suppose. Getting access into a turbine is a very difficult thing. So when we design these microphones, we have to make sure that we're not going to have to go up there and replace them. So, for instance, we've put a 5-year warranty on these. So that kind of gives you an idea on the minimum lifespan. So we have these microphones which do loads of things like changing what's known as an analog signal. So the thing that you would get on a tape recorder or a record, and changing that into a digital signal, but in the microphone. And it means that then we can have as much cable as we want to go down to our kind of supercomputer, as it were. So this is a Linux industrial computer. And because it's a Linux industrial computer, it means it can access other systems very, very easily. And we can connect to it in a number of ways. And it's all this sort of level of flexibility is there for a reason. Every turbine and every turbine operator and every bat species are different. They all do different things, whether we're allowed on a site or not, what sort of equipment is allowed to be installed, how we connect, all those sort of things are really integral, and they're different on every single site. The noise generated caused by the turbine is different for each turbine. Even if they're being built in the same factory and put out on the same site, they will make different noises. Legislation around the world's different. And finally, there's, we've got 1,450 species globally of bat. Every bat is different. So the idea of the smart system is twofold, really. The first thing is to look at remote monitoring. And what we can do with remote monitoring is just see when bats are using or associated with a turbine. The second thing we can do is to stop that turbine in real time. And the reason we sort of do this is for a number of reasons. We sort of see that a wind turbine is a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it's presenting lots of green energy, but it's a bad thing, so it's killing bats. And there's a trade-off between the wind energy company and basically wildlife. At the moment, there's the only mitigation that we tend to put in is something called blanket curtailment. In other words, these are documented papers that say bats don't fly in wind speeds of greater than this, and bats don't fly in temperatures lower than this, and so on. And so you have this curtailment, which is set around a set of parameters, but those haven't been case tested for that particular area. This puts massive stresses on wind farm economics because the more bat protection is put in place, the less energy these turbines are producing. And often if you've done surveys before you put a turbine in, that's not relative to when you put the turbine in. The pre-construction modeling is not predictive of your post-construction fatalities, mainly because you've changed the landscape. You've put a big white stick in the landscape and bats go and investigate it. So we can't actually do that. So of our three options we have blanket curtailment, shutting down all the time, operational curtailment. So this is taking data that we take from an actual bat detector that's put in a turbine and work out how bats are using that space around it based on things like wind speeds and temperatures, but you make it site specific. So this is what the majority of people are doing with this piece of equipment at the moment. And the final option is to shut a turbine down when a bat is present and doing real-time curtailment. In other words, real-time stopping. And how that's done, it's done, it's really basic decision tree here. So we find a bat, the decision's made within our system on whether we should be stopping the turbine or not, based on the signals that bat's putting out or that noise that we're receiving. If we say yes, the turbine shuts down. If we say no, the turbine just keeps going. So it's a very simple process. So what I wanted to do was to hopefully just show you a quick case study that I'm working on at the moment. We've got several around the world, but this is one that's based in the south of England, and it's on a small turbine. So it's quite a nice little turbine to play with. So it's just looking at 2 months worth of data, or this example is just looking at 2 months worth of data from last year in the UK summer, which is July and August. And of those 60 nights, we got 18 evenings where there was bat activity. The whole point in putting these turbines in locations where there isn't bat activity. So this is actually quite a lot of bats, really. And I went through all the data manually. We've got a good collection of species here for the site, and the ones that we're really interested in, the ones that are flying high and going to collide with those turbine blades, are this nocturne, which is the big deep blue, this green one, which is a Lisla, and then this light blue one, which is Ceratine. So 2/3 of our bats here are species of concern, and we can look at those bat calls versus wind speed. So we can see here that obviously, the lower the wind speed, the greater the number of bats are present. And as the wind speed increases, we get fewer and fewer. And we get to a point where the wind is at 8 meters per second, we don't get any bats whatsoever. So we could say, shut down your system at 8 meters per second. But that's a lot of wind energy that they're losing. So I set up a couple of, we call them alarms. You don't necessarily need to know much about all this data, but basically what we're looking at are 2 groups of bats, and we're going to switch off whenever we get any of these groups. And the important point is this 30 300, 600 or 900 seconds. This is the period of time we're going to shut down for, a period of time where there's no bat activity at all before we start up again. And the reason that this is important is because this is a trade-off again with wind farm economics and bat mortality. So what turbine manufacturers and operators don't want is your turbine shutting off and starting up lots and lots, because it wears the turbine out. So they'd rather shut down for longer with fewer stops. And here we've got a kind of quite a good example of the number of stops based on the same batch of data, and then how long that downtime is. So a 15-minute stop produces about 32 stops during this 2-month period, and we lose about 10 hours worth of electricity generation. And you think, well, 10 hours worth of electricity generation. In the long term, if we look at if we're shutting down at 8 meters per second, this is the loss of electricity generation for those 2 months, which is 2 months worth of nights worth of data, energy generation lost. So you can see that there is a huge difference. So this is having a double effect, because we're hopefully saving bats. It's an automated system, and we're helping with energy production as well. So it has a double whammy. Now, this is a tiny case study. We have 5 or 6 others that are around the world at the moment. But just to go back on what I'm going to be doing there next year, or this year, shall we say, as of next week, we're going to do active curtailment once again, and we're going to look data from May to October, so expanding the season. We're going to do dog carcass searches. In other words, dogs are very, very good, especially trained dogs are very, very good at picking up scent from bats that have been kind of hit, and hopefully we'll be able to find or not find any bats, depending on what we do. We're also going to be filming the interactions with the turbines. So this would be using infrared technology, and also filming the active curtailment. So that's our dream, is to get all that in one go. I'm sorry I'm speaking so fast, but I'm cramming things in. And just to sort of finish off, if you go back to what kind of I do for a living, which is more to do with bioacoustics and side of things. I'm creating little green boxes that we put out in the field, or little red bat detectors that we use on our phones. There's lots of free resources on our website, and I'm from a place in the UK called Yorkshire, which is, we did never spend any more money if you're a Yorkshireman. So all these things are free. So we've got free training courses, webinars, of which Anna has spoken at one of our webinars as well. But the other thing I want to point you to as well is the thing at the bottom, which is a grant scheme. We have a grant scheme, and we give 4 grants a quarter of up to $3,000 worth of equipment, and it's a nice, easy grant to apply for. So please, please, please apply for the grant as well. And if there's any questions, or I've got time for any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, for the presentation.
No worries.
Yeah, we open again the chat box for if anyone or participant want to ask something, or if you confused about something, we really please don't hesitate to ask something to our keynote speaker. But while we waiting for the participant to ask again, I want to ask. Oh, Pravana, you want to ask first? Yeah, you can ask first.
Well, I'm wondering, because I feel like with 1,400 species of bats, just to say bats are affected by wind turbines, etc. Like, is there a family of bats, or a group of bats that you think, of the insectivorous bats, I guess, that would be less affected, that you could focus more on other groups?
So it tends to be insectivorous bats, but the ones that tend to have lower frequency calls, mainly because low frequency sound, as you know, low frequency sound travels further than high frequency sound. So in other words, they're further off the ground when they're flying, just the nature of their call and how they're flying. They're also not as agile as well. And we have to sort of put it in context with what's happening with the turbines. Turbines are getting bigger and bigger. So the tips of those blades are going around faster and faster. And so it's basically, they become more and more dangerous as they get faster and as the turbines get bigger. The ones that are being built in the North Sea at the moment are 360 meters to the hub. So that's the middle pin. So the top of the turbine is 0.5 kilometer in the air. So it's but they're there's so little being, well, lots of work is starting to be done on it, but there's so little research being done on this that we need more researchers doing work on this. The other thing that seems to be an issue as well is fruit bats, again, probably because of the mobility. They're not very agile at zipping around things. So the smaller, more agile bats are probably okay, whereas the bigger the bat, the bigger the collision, I suppose.
How is it, Prof. Anna? Okay, okay, Paul. As you see, probably on the chat box, has someone asking also about from Brittany Vapon about when you turn off the turbine, how long does it take for the blades to stop the rotating? It seems like, yeah.
But this is, again, I said every turbine's different, but it's a brilliant question because there's no point in switching it off if it's going to take 10 minutes to turn off. So we can send a signal from detect a bat in between 2 and 5 seconds. So we can send a signal in 2 to 5 seconds. The turbine, they won't just stop it. They can just, they call it a hard brake, and they can just stop it, but it breaks their turbine. They don't want to do it. So what they do is they feather the blades. They turn the blades away from the wind, and it's a gradual slowdown. But that gradual slowdown, based on what I've just said, the slower those blades are going, the less likely that you're going to be killing a bat. But to a complete stop, you're looking at about a minute and a half for it to do a complete stop. But even the slowing down is likely to help with the with bats not crashing into the turbine.
Thank you, Paul. I hope that is answer your question, Brittany Vapon. And yeah, yeah. And if you or guys want to know about wildlife acoustic more that Paul already present, you can visit the website that wildlife acoustic, and also we will later at the end we will open again discussion. If you have any question later, we can bring it up again. So thank you, Paul. We will continue to our next keynote speaker. That is Sutasin Sausum from Love Wildlife Foundation. Hello, Sutasin.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
Thank you for having me join the seminar tonight.
Oh, no worries. How are you, Sutasin? Could you hear our voice clearly?
Yes. Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yep. Now you can share your screen.
Can anyone see my screen?
Oh, yeah. We already said. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am Pep from Love Wildlife Foundation. So I am working as a conservation program manager since September 2023. So today I would like to present you some of our research about the slow release conservation in Khao Lak Marine Resort. Yes, here is the map of the all location that we are working right now, but that not only for the slow release conservation program, but we also have the education program and marine conservation program as well. But for the slow release project, we are also working in Khao Lak Marine Resort in Phang Nga province in the southern part of Thailand. Here is a red pin here. Yes, it is a picture of the resort. So we start working with Khao Lak Marine Resort as a partnership since 2019 to preserve the local wildlife. And there are many of the local trees native to Phang Nga, which is provide the environment that support the natural food for the animals. At the beginning, we conduct the biodiversity survey in the resort. And from that survey, we found that there are over of the 150 animal species within the resort, and including mammal, amphibian, reptile, birds, butterfly, and dragonfly. And we use all this information to create the guidebook to provide the guests in the resort to identify the animal that they can see in the resort. And we also create the information sites to inform the guests about the commonly seen animals with the IUCN Red List status as well. And we also provide them the training for the resort staff to identify the animal that they can see in the resort and more understanding about the Psiloris, which is a famous species in the Khao Lak Marine Resort. The project, the Psiloris project is started by the resort contact us that they said that they have the Psiloris in their property and they would like to conserve them. So, and they are sometimes the resort staff found the loris walk across the road from the resort to the fruit orchard. So this is making the risk for them to hit by the car. So in that time, we decided to install the rope bridge for helping the Psiloris climb from the resort to the fruit orchard. And we also install the rope inside the resort to make them move safely. Like this picture, you can see a lot of rope here. We install in the big tree, on the big tree, which have no branch or connectivity. And we found that the Psiloris also use them. Yeah, this is a video that I took it when I saw the Psiloris using the rope here. Yeah, and now you can see how comfortable when the Psiloris using our rope. Yeah, they poop. He poop. So, and I also collect the sample of the poop for the Psiloris and need someone to help me to identify what they eat. Maybe in the future, I will do this research. Yes. And after that, we found that the loris use our rope. So we have the second project about using the camera trap for tracking the follow the slow loris. The camera trap is a good option for the technology to check how often the slow loris using the rope, and we also have a lot of information from the camera trap, like the time activity for these animals as well. And the equipment that we are using is including the camera trap pink here and the SD card. The SD card that we use is like minimum 32 GB. But I suggest to have the 64 GB because we change the battery every 3 months because of the tree in the resort is quite high, and the cardinal that help us to deploy to set the camera. I want to like take the less risk for him to climb the trees. And the battery that we use is a rechargeable lithium battery that will reducing the waste. We use a sling to tie the cameras with the trees, and we also use the test shot paper to record all the information that when we deploy or do something with the camera. On the left side is the example of the data that we record the information before we doing something with the camera, like including the date and time, camera station, camera ID, memory card ID, location and observer, and what we are doing with the cameras, deploy, check, or collect the camera. Because every time when we do something with the camera, we will use the test shot every time. Yeah, this first step, the biologist of the resort, she will set up the cameras. When she finish set up the camera, she will fill in all the data to the test shot, and then take a picture of test shot by the cameras. And the last step, the gardener will put the camera on the tree, to climb to the tree and put the camera trap on the trees. And the important thing is we write the time at the last step, because we don't want to have the different time between taking the pictures of the test shot by the cameras. I will show you an example like this. Yeah, because sometimes it's happened when the sometimes happen with the cameras error by the some reason, like high temperatures or humidity, to make the date and time errors, or we just do something mistake when we start setting up the cameras. So if we take the test shot with the camera traps, we will see the date and time correct here in the test shot in the picture, and timestamp in the picture. If it's correct, it's fine, but if it's incorrect or it's not the same date and time from the test shot, we can use this image as a reference to edit date and time for all the image in that cameras. And this show you some pictures from the camera trap that show that not only the soloist using our rope, they still have the small mammal like squirrel also use it. And on the left below, you can see, like here, maybe not very clear, there is a snake also use our rope. Yeah, and the other project that we are doing right now with the biologists in Khao Lak Marine Resort is checking about the diet of the animal. So every month she will check all the trees in the resort, like about 300 trees every month, to check if there is flowers or fruit of the animals. This will be information for us to analyze about the food for animal in the future. And the resort also have the night walk activity for the guests to join us to find the animal in the nighttime. So during the activity, when they found the slow loris, we will also record the information of the loris as well by putting the data in the loris tag here. The information in the tag is including about how many soloists we found, and how the weather there is any like fruit or tree in that trees, like that. And when we finish put the information in the tag, we will type it on that tree and record in the Excel file and use for analysis after. And before the activity start, we always explain the guests to don't use the white flash. And here is the head torch that we are using right now. Actually, it's not a red light, but we adapt it. It's a cheap one in Thailand, and we adapt it just by the cellophane paper to put inside the head torch to make it as a red light to protect the animal's eye. And this is just some small tips from us. This is a camera digital from the resort that we are using to help the student from Brooks University who do the slow loris observation right now. So we use only the automatic mode with P mode and SCN with the animal function. This is an automatic mode that we can use to make it easier while we are recording the picture or video of the soloists that we see in the night. This is a comparison between we using the P mode and SCN mode. The programmed setting mode, automatic mode is make a color quite red, like a red light from the torch. This is when we found the solar rays very far from us, and it's very high, live in the very high trees. And SCN mode with animal function, we use when we found the solar rays like not very far from us, and the color is close to the real. And this is a example for the video that we take it by that cameras while using P mode. This tree is very high, but still the camera still okay, good for quality to identify the individual and their behaviors. This one is daddy and his daughters. Yes. Yeah, thank you. This is just like some research so in the research. Yes.
Thank you for the nice presentation.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, we have someone
Sorry.
have a question about the presentation. Probably
Yes.
you can answer. And Prof. Anna, if you want to like also answer this question, the first question is about what kind of the tree which suitable for the slow lovis that produce gum or anything else?
What kind of tree, sorry?
What kind of the tree species of
Ah,
suitable for produce gum or something like that?
in the resort, the favorite trees for the gum is Indian almond. Indian almond. Yeah, this is a favorite for the gum. And right now there is a lot of fruit inside the resort. For now we have the mom and baby. So they are living in the tree which having a fruit. It's called, I'm not sure how to call it in English. I'm not sure, apple or something. Can I text you later because I forgot how to tell in English. Yeah, they are living in that tree which has the fruit with the sweet one. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Prof. Anna, you want to add some information?
One of the things that we found with the fruits is the fruit has a really sticky inside. So
Yes.
so
It's
the
a
fruit,
type of the jackfruit.
yeah, so it's like a jackfruit that still is like a gum. So there aren't so many of the gum trees in the resort,
Right.
and so they're eating more of this tree with the sticky fruit to there's the marmosets and tamarinds have something similar called parkia, which is also serves like a gum. So it can,
Yes.
and the Javan slow lorises also have the jackfruit gums as well.
Right. Thank you.
And we have also the other another question is asked about would it be possible to use these rope bridges across roads to protect them and other animals from the cars, like wildlife bridges?
Yes. Yes, it's helpful. It's helpful. They use it before they use it. Yeah.
Thank you. And another question from Esther Adinda. I think this is the last question. We can open discussion again later. Those are she want to ask about there is a myth of local beliefs about the slow lovis in there. Also, do the slow lovis often come to the building or the resort? Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm follow them, they're also walking on the rope as well. Yeah, but I never I never see they walk on the ground. Like I work it like for a month there. I just follow them for a month there, but I never see they walk on the ground. They use only the on the canopy and sometimes walk on the rope to go to the another trees. Yes.
Yeah, we can see on that presentation that like connectivity that in the bridges that you like
Ah.
feel is really a lot. So probably the slow lorries can work with the bridges.
Yeah.
We can see that from your presentation. Yes, probably
Yes.
sometimes they come into that building. Yeah, the visa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for any question. If you have any question later, we can open discussion at the end of the presentation. And thank you for the presentation, Sutasin. We will,
Thank you.
sorry, yeah. We will next for the next keynote speaker, that is Dr. Priscilla Meyer from Night Spotting Project. Okay, hello, Dr. Priscilla.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for being here today. Let me share my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's okay, right?
Yeah, we can see the screen now. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you everyone. So today I'm going to talk about the role of red light in sustainable nighttime tourism and how it can help safeguard wildlife and enhance visitor experience. So I've been working in Asia and Malaysia for around 12 years now, and I'm currently a lecturer at the local university, University Sabah, Malaysia. And my work again has been on different species like slow loris with ananicaris and then tarsier, colugos, and recently flying squirrels. Yeah. So first, I want to start speaking about sustainable tourism. Because when we talk about sustainable tourism, it mentioned that it takes full accounts, of its current and future economic and social aspects and environmental impacts, addressing the need for visitors, the industry, the environment, and host communities. But unfortunately, when we talk about sustainable tourism, the impact on the environment is often not really assessed and understood. So that's kind of a big issue we're trying to work in here in Sabah. So here where I work in Sabah in Borneo, so just an example, but it's the same all over the world. So here it's a huge industry for tourism. We have around 4.1 billion ringgit of revenue every year, which is huge. As you can see here, around 35% of visitors are into ecotourism, but we don't really understand exactly how the tourism industry actually, make revenue from nature tourism and wildlife in general. So we are going to work soon on exploring nocturnal tourism in Sabah and see how each species, for example, in different resorts or different tourism places, actually bring money to those places. So this is a bit more social science research, but this is really interesting because we don't really know yet. Even if we know Sabah is a big nature tourism place. And when we talk about understanding sustainable nighttime tourism, again, you attract visitors for unique experiences. People will come from all over the world, pay a lot of money, to experience something different, see certain species. Like, for example, here we have tarsiers that people, love to see, or we even have slow lorises and a lot of other things like insects, gliding mushrooms, and a lot of other things like that. But when we talk about, again, I mentioned nature tourism, right? It's about biodiversity maintenance and improvements and visitor appreciation and awareness. And often those tools are not really well managed by the tour guide because they have their own understanding from their own knowledge, but also their own expectation. So they often put expectation on themselves, or this is what the tourist wants. And again, it's not about what the tourists want, but what you have to offer to the tourists. And this is something, hard to work on. It's a lot of behavior change, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And before I continue, I want to talk a bit more about what Dr. Nekaris has been talking about, because she's been really passionate for many years, about red light and working at night. So I want to talk about natural versus artificial lights. So a lot of people don't really understand what is the difference between all those type of lights and the effect it has on wildlife. So here, if you look on this graph, at noon, this is what the light looks like with all the spectrum of colors from blue to red. But then if you go into the evening, as you can see at sunset, of course, we have more of the red spectrum and less of the blue light, which actually helps you fall asleep. And then at night, as you can see, there's almost no more blue, green light, and it's mostly in the red spectrum. And this is really important for the rest. So here, when we look at LED light that we currently use for most of our head torch for nocturnal activity, I would say 99.9% of people in the world, they use what we call cool white, which is actually a blue spectrum light, which is actually highly disruptive, even for us with our phones, computer, it stops us from sleeping well. And if you use a warm white LED, it's a bit better because as you can see, you will have more of the spectrum towards the red light. Again, you have different type of light like the fluorescent and the incandescent, but I won't go too much on it because that's not really what most people use the most nowadays because again, LED is everywhere and that's what people use. And we know there's a lot of research actually on what we call ALAN. So it's artificial light at night and the impact on wildlife. So as you can see here, it disrupts circadian rhythm. It has negative impact on a lot of biological function for many taxon of nocturnal animals. So not just mammals, but bats, insects, frogs, anything really that you can find at night. And there's a lot of study on actually how birds are really disoriented by those lights and also sea turtles. So I will show example a bit more later about sea turtles when there has been some study about it. But here, if you look on this graph about light pollution, it really impacts everything from us, people, to wildlife, how we sleep. Again, nowadays we have a lot of studies. And I just want to mention there's currently a lot of study on the use of red light as a tool in medicine. So red light has been showing a lot of really good prospect for eye treatment, skin treatments, again, sleep quality. So actually red light is quite amazing by itself due to its spectrum. And then this is just a small infographic that you can find online, which all the effect of wildlife, when we have around 30% of nocturnal vertebrates and 60% of invertebrates that are actually impacted by white light at night. We also have a lot of birds killed every year by collision with buildings because we have so many lights turned on. Again, artificial lighting disturb pollinations from bats, bees, and moths, which result in actually a problem of food security for humans because we need food and we need pollinators. And again, there's much more than that. But here on this graph, you can see for turtles, for example, between 1992 and 2013, 3.86 turtle nests lost for every 1 unit of light added, which doesn't seem like a lot, but imagine 1 unit of light added, it's a lot. So actually turtles die because of light. So I will mention why a bit later. And again, even barrier reef, a lot of species are impacted by that. And then here is just a small graph to show you why all the lights that we use at night are so bad. So here you can see the moonlight is around 1 lumen. And nowadays, everyone wants to go at night with more than 1,000 lumen light because, you know, it's so bright, I can see everything. But actually, it's not as simple as this. So if you see this picture, right? So that's what most people do, except all of us who work with slow lorises who use already red light. But why not we shift to using red light instead? So it's less disturbing for your eyes, you can see better at night, and the wildlife will love you for it. So if you look even on Google, right, and you put nocturnal wildlife 2 using red lights, it will tell you
Sorry, Dr. Priscilla, to interrupt you because your voice is going far. So on me, I cannot. Oh yeah.
You hear me now?
No, I'm still cannot hear you clearly.
I think my internet is not so good.
Oh, that's
now,
better now. That's better.
yeah.
Yeah, we have really weird internet here in Malaysia sometimes. Yeah. Do I need to go back to the last slide or it's okay to move forward?
I think it's okay. You just sounded very far away.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so if you go on Google, like I mentioned, you can see that a lot of articles explain why it's important to use red light instead of white light. It preserves your night vision. It allows you to see clearly in the dark and without disturbing the animals. In contrast, white light will scare them away. So it's actually quite common knowledge, but there's not really a lot of study to show that. And this is just a small map that we made because we did a bit of literature review, or we looked online where people use red light, like I mentioned, either for research or night tourism. So far, like, as you can see, it's really quite located in few places. So in Asia, of course, it's because of the work of Professor Nane Karis in Asia and, slow loris, slender loris for many years. But also in Australia, because actually in Australia, they produce their own red light, which I mentioned later. And many people actually use them nowadays. And a bit in Africa, a bit in Europe and in the US, but it's really 1 or 2 people here and there. It's not like a lot of people. And then in India, a lot of people use red light. But again, there's not many papers published on the use of red light for nocturnal studies. And as mentioned before, so white light is really good for you. No, not good for you, but red light is because it enhances your night vision. So this is how it looks like for the human eyes. It's the same as some animal also. So during the day, you will see really well in front of your eyes, which is what really bright white light do. But actually, when you use a red light, you will be blind in the middle, but your field of light will be all around your eyes. So you can actually detect eye shine from animals from really far away. And we will show you some result that studies we have done here in Malaysia, which is actually quite impressive when you see the result of this. And then to continue here, like I mentioned, the benefit for wildlife. So Professor Nane Karis mentioned before the freezing behavior of slow loris using white light that doesn't happen with red light. And in general, it's the same for many species. Like now we're working on flying squirrels. The same, if you use white light, they will turn away from you. They will go a bit further. And we're doing more studies here, how long we can follow the animals, how far away they are from you and their behavior. So we hope this kind of study, more into the use of different type of lights, can actually influence research and tourism purposes. So here is just a small result of what we've been doing here in Malaysia. So if you look here on this graph, when you use white light and when you shift to red light, so this was a light with the filter, you improve your detection by 46%, which is huge because it's almost half more detection of wildlife compared to white light. And when you couple with the thermal imaging, we had also an improvement of 26%. And this is, as mentioned before, because animals go into places which are quite hidden in the trees, quite dense in the bush. But then the new study we did here in Sabah is actually quite interesting. So for this one, we look at the real detection when we use both thermal and red lights during transects. So actually using a red filter, we detect animal by almost 62% with the red light and only 20% with the thermal camera. But when we shifted to a pure red LED head torches, we had 0 detection with the thermal imaging. And this is quite impressive because we didn't expect so much of a shift. But actually what it does is because the red LED, it's much stronger and you can see further away than using a red filter in front of your white light, which dim the light a lot. So we think it's because it dimmed the light so much that actually you cannot see as far away as you can with the pure LED. And also with the pure red LED, we have found out that the eye shines of animals are much stronger. So we can see them also from further away, which was quite interesting from this study. And there was a paper published in 2012 in Australia that looked at observation techniques that minimize impact on wildlife and maximize visitor satisfaction in nighttime tours. This was in Australia, and they actually used red light and see how the people were perceiving the red light. So you see, it's not new, 2012, and red light again since 1950s. We know we should use, or at least study the use of red light at night. And here is some of the results that we have from Sabah with tarsier, for example. So this is what we can see under red light. You see a big pupil dilatation, which is actually really good because they are nocturnal animals. They can see really well in the dark. So same as us when we use a red light. But then a lot of photos using white light or white flash, you can see that the pupil is so constricted And this actually showed that there is way too much light into the eyes of the animal. So at the moment, we're trying to see how can we study this, because we think it also has an impact into their vision system, can potentially blind them, and in the long term can really make them blind and bring a lot of issue with those animals, especially tarsier, who normally are seen just a few meters from you. They are not really high in the tree, so that could be a bit of issue for nocturnal tourism. And here is a top post on Instagram by my student, Safi. And as you can look, all those pictures are actually quite bad, I will say, when you look at the eyes of the tarsier, because those animals really, really have big eyes compared to their body. And we have stories from Sabah where the animals are blinded and they don't move for 2 hours. So if an animal don't move for 2 hours, you know something is really bad. And again, there's a lot of stories like that all over the world, within Philippines, for example, where they commit suicide because too many people. So that's why night tourism is really a danger to the wildlife, and we need to study this more. So how can we design sustainable nighttime tourism with red lights? Again, when you use red light, it brings more possibilities for night hike, where you can do more stargazing, more wildlife tours. Again, people who like glowing mushrooms, glowing insects, all those kind of things. You don't need to turn off your light, so it's much more, I'd say that it's a better experience for everyone. But again, there is a lot of planning and design consideration in those activities where you need to integrate red light into, for example, existing infrastructure. Because if you have a lot of buildings with white light and you try to use red light, it doesn't really work because you cannot really see. You're a bit blinded. And again, use of orange lights is possible if people want to take small photos or videos, you know, with their phone or cameras, because they're not professional. And we know that tourists, that's what they want. They want to be able to bring back souvenirs, and they don't just want, you know, a red light video or photos. So there is a way of mitigating, as long as you don't use it for too long, but only a few seconds. And here I will just show you some case study and best practices of what we found in the world and what we've been doing here in Sabah. So this is in Africa, where there is two safari places who actually use red light for night drive. And as mentioned before, right, you can see the photo here at the corner, at the bottom. I mean, pictures in red light can also be really beautiful if the photographer knows how to properly take pictures at night. So it's a way also to play with the lights and have a bit more fun instead of the traditional night pictures with bright white lights. And then in Australia again, so, and also in the US, in Florida, they've been studying sea turtles. And because we know that sea turtles are really affected by white light, because instead of going to the ocean, they will go to the land and they will die. So in most places around the world, it's compulsory to use red light for turtles projects to allow them to, you know, go into the sea properly and be able to live. So here is one area in Australia where they actually put red lights to allow the passing of those turtles from the nest crossing the road to the ocean. And as you can see, people were not really, really happy about it, because, you know, they're like, oh, it's not safe. We cannot really see well when we drive with red lights. So it's just people are not really used to it. So there's a bit of issue with using red lights. And also we'll talk about it later, but it's also related to human vision. So what we've been doing here in Malaysia, we did a lot of training. So we did in Penang Island in the peninsula, also in Langkawi Island, and here in Sabah in Borneo, where we collaborated with two places, the Rainforest Discovery Center and the Borneo Rainforest Lodge. So what we do is we conduct training for 3 days or 2 days with the tour guide. We teach them, you know, about nocturnal ecology, wildlife, and we bring them in the forest with us. And of course, you know, changing behavior is not easy. So it takes time, but at least we do one step at a time. And here is just a short video of what it looks like when everyone uses red lights. So it's actually really nice, and you will see a bit of white light when he's actually trying to take a photo. I think there was a frog down there. So again, it's about mitigating what everyone does. And here is one of the group during this activity. And we asked them to create new activities at night, because often we found people do, you know, the normal night tour I will just walk in the forest, look what's around. But actually, there's so many ways to do, like looking at the skies, looking at the stars, listening to sounds. So there's a lot of ways that actually tour guides don't know how to use technology to actually improve those activities. And here is one successful story from all this work over the past 2 years. So we have the first place in Malaysia, we will use compulsory red light for nocturnal tours for both guide and tourists. So this is quite amazing because there's not many places like this around the world who implement at a large scale, because they have a lot of people going every night in this place to see tarsier, flying squirrels, and a lot of other wildlife. So we are really exciting to also study how it changed in terms of what they can see, because they also record all the animals they see every night. And then we found out that some people that we didn't really know, who must have attended some of our talk or workshop, started to implement also use of red light in other places in Sabah, which is really exciting, because that means they do understand and they do value the knowledge that we give them, which I think is the advantage of working here. So as you can see, they started using slowly the red lights. And again, here is some posts from Facebook. So there is some red light photos with white light in the middle. So again, it's a work in process, but it's getting there slowly. And what are the challenges and solution of using red lights? So one of the main issues, the initial cost of implementations, because products are not available. It's really hard to find a red light torches, and most people use a filter. And when you try to do research or telling the tour guide, they don't really want to use it because it's not strong enough. And also public perception and acceptance, because as you can see here, this is actually pictures from horror movies. So red light is often associated with fear. I'm a bit scared. I don't really want to walk around with red lights. So there's a lot of perception problem to deal with. And also human vision. As I mentioned, we often don't consider human vision when we use red light, but actually some people are colorblind, especially men, which actually they cannot see red light. So if you ask them to use red light at night, it could be an issue because they cannot see. Of course, nowadays we have technology like special glasses that allows you to actually see for people who are colorblind. And some solution exists, for example, education and awareness campaign, maybe some funding and grants for more research and tourism projects. More research, we need more research about the different spectrum of lights, how it impacts different species, different taxon, because this also, we know about, artificial light at night in general, but not in terms of specific behavior or, specific species. And the more research we have, the more it will bring changes. And again, another issue, again, I mentioned the availability of light for purchase. So this is what we did here in Sabah. So we help people to get red light torches, and it's not a red filter, it's a pure red LED. So we have those small torchlight that are really cheap, that can be used by tourists, by everyone, can find online everywhere from China, quite easy to use. And then we have those big torchlight, because here tour guide, they prefer to have a torchlight and a head torch. And those have also an adjustable beam. So it's really good because if the animal is far, you can see. And if it's close, you can adjust the beam so you don't blind the animal. And again, the head torch, which is the same brand and the same effects. And I found this online where people have actually created red turtle lights, again, to bring more awareness about turtles, sea turtle, and you should only use red flashlights when, the babies come out and they need to go into the sea, which is quite good. And again, I'm always asked about pictures at night. And I think red light photos like these are really cute. And even tourists, they love, something a bit different. So here is when we use red light or thermal imaging, because again, you can use that as a tool for tourism. And those pictures, again, if you're a professional photographer, you can take pictures of animal with red light on and a flash. But flash, of course, reserved for professional photographer who know to use it on the side of the animal so it doesn't hurt them. So for tourism purposes, we avoid flash because we don't want 10 people flashing at the same time. But it's possible to take pictures, like here, the tarsier also that we have here in Sabah, the mom and the baby. And you can see the eyes, the difference with the white light picture, the pupils are really big, which means that the flash by itself also doesn't really hurt them so much. And just to finish this talk, because I've been talking a lot and I can talk for hours, but again, we need to recognize the importance of red light and having more people using it. And again, enhance the visitor experience. Like I mentioned, for the tour guide, it's not about what the tourists want, it's about what you can offer. And this is often misunderstood. And again, we need more research on red light and different spectrum. So we are doing some here in Sabah. At the moment, we have some on the way to be published. So we hope that more people will start, looking at different spectrum of lights and how it impacts different species. And again, for mammals, again, birds, frogs, insects, all of them are actually impacted, and it's important to do this. And as my students say, don't be a white walker, use red light. So that's how we call people nowadays who do night walk using white light. We call them white walker as a joke. So if you want to know more, you can follow us online at Night Spotting Project, where we share a lot of photos, videos, what we do in the field. So same as Little Firefest Project, we collaborate often on many things. And I thank Prof. Anane Karis, with who I would have never started my career on this. So you can follow us and learn more. And then if you have any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Priscilla Meyer, for the presentation. I saw really like nice information that when we doing night activity, we can like use red light, because like some wildlife that active or at the night of like nocturnal wildlife can be like saved from the white light, something like that. So I hope in many places later after heard this presentation from you can use the red light in the night activity. Yeah, we open the question again. If anyone have any question, please don't hesitate to ask on the chat box, or like you can raise your hand, and anything you want to ask about the Dr. Priscilla presentation is really welcome. Oh, we have one question from our admin, like how feasible is it to replace street light with the red light?
So actually, this is a good question. It's actually really easy. Like I mentioned, we have red LED. It's easy to replace white LED with red LED. And why people don't do it is just because, again, there's no awareness. And you can find red light everywhere. But it's just, again, getting good qualities, because the problem with red LED, it eats up a lot. So if you don't have a good product, often what happens, your torchlight will heat up really hard and it will become hot. Or even the light by itself will stop working because of, connection problems. So that's why this is one of the issues with red LED. It heats up really fast. But like I mentioned, in Australia, they did it. They replaced, street light with red light, but people were really scared. They were really spooked out. They really, for example, if you walk on the street, it's really scary. Like I mentioned, all the horror movie, when you see red light, you think someone will come up and you'll become abducted or something. So I think the perception of people are really hard to change for that. But again, we don't need to put all the street light red. We need maybe certain strategic places. And like here in Asia, for example, people leave lights on all night everywhere. I mean, in Europe, we turn off the light when we sleep at night. We don't really need bright white light when we sleep. And often people mention, safety. You can use red lights instead of white light. You can use red light in your house. You can still use your camera to record if you have like security system. So it's really possible actually to bring changes.
Priscilla, you disappeared.
Oh,
Oh, you're
I
back
think
again.
my
And you're still
internet doesn't
sharing,
like me today.
and you're still sharing the screen as well.
Well, I can stop sharing. Maybe my internet will be better. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Am I
you.
here or not anymore?
Thank you, Dr. Priscilla. Yeah, I've been, that is the like slowly, but we need to be like more like spread the like information to the people that use the red light and like reduce use the white light at the night. So that can be save our wildlife, and also that, as I saw from your presentation, that is also better for our eyes. didn't have the blind spot in the middle. Yeah. Yeah, Professor Anna.
I just think I wonder if you've spoken to anyone, because I obviously have spoken to people about this. I still have so many people say to me, with my species, it doesn't matter if we use white light. They're fine. They're not afraid. And it frustrates me so much because they've never done a study. They haven't collected the data. They haven't compared. And I wonder if you've had anyone say that to you and what your response is to them.
Yeah, so that's a good question, actually. During the last IPS conference that we did in Kuching, because we also give a talk, right, on the red light, and I had many people, studying primates at night and coming to tell me the same thing. And I said, how do you know? And actually, like people don't really know the impact and they don't really understand how important it is. That's why I hope that with the paper that we are publishing soon, that more people will be aware actually of the impact. And one of the study we are doing now in Kinabatangan here in Sabah, I think this study by itself will bring a lot of changes because it will show really how long you can follow an animal, how far it is from you. I mean, my student is really blown away by the results so far. And I think that's the thing. We really need more people working on specifically lights and how it impact wildlife, because I think there's really not many. Like I said, there is some on turtles. Your work a bit on slow loris and how they freeze, but I think we really need more diverse studies. And again, if people say it doesn't impact my species, say, okay, let's work together and let's try, because I think that's what's needed. We need to encourage people to try. So hopefully soon we have more people. Yeah, I know it's an issue, but I do believe that by trying to collaborate, and again, availability of product, that's one of the main issue we've been working on in Sabah. And now we even have people in Madagascar using the red light that we use here. So we hope that soon it will really move forward, but I do agree with you, it takes time.
Yep, thank you, Dr. Priscilia, about the answer and also about the presentation. And I think we will open discuss again later at the end of our seminar. So probably we will continue with the next keynote speaker, that is Marjan Maria from Bangladesh Slow Lovis Research and Conservation Project. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Can you hear me?
Yay! You can start to share screen. So I can hear you clearly. So now we try to like see your screen. Is it okay with your signal or something like that?
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you see?
yeah. We can see the screen now. And yeah, you can start, Marjan.
Okay. Okay. So this is Marjan Maria. I'm from Bangladesh. Please ignore the background sound. I have a kid with me. So yes, I'm from Bangladesh. I have been working on primate conservation for more than 6 years. Special focus on Bengal slow loris. And today I will share one of our successful private conservation stories where we built artificial canopy bridges to reduce mortality by roadkill and electrocution, and to evaluate the impact we installed we installed camera traps. So we all know primates plays an important role to our ecosystem, especially to tropical ecosystem. They do seed dispersal, they do pollination, and so on. Despite of being an important element to our ecosystem, 60% of primate species are globally threatened, where it is 73% in Asia. Besides habitat loss, food scarcity, illegal trading, poaching, the recent new threats to primates are roadkill and electrocution. In Bangladesh perspective, forest lands are heavily fragmented and few forest patches remaining scattered in northeastern region, southeast region, and southwest of our country. Though Bangladesh harbors 9 primate species, all the primate species are at high risk of mortality due to roadkill and electrocution. To know the exact scenario of roadkill and electrocution mortality, we conduct a study to forest patches of Bangladesh, and then we applied a probable solution to mitigate this issue. So to carry out this study, we selected 2 forest patches of northeastern region of Bangladesh. One is Laochara National Park and another is Satchai National Park. So Laochara National Park is fragmented by Srimangal Bhanughat Highway as well as Dhaka Sylhet Railway. On the other hand, Satchai National Park is fragmented by Old Dhaka Sylhet Highway. And in addition, both of the forest has power supply lines that pass through the forest. And to carry out the study, we collected private mortality data from both primary and from primary and secondary sources. And we collected data from July 2015 to December 2017. We also did some interviews with forest staffs, local peoples, and collected data from record books of the range office of Satchai National Park and Laochara National Park. And the result was very pathetic. Total of 27 individuals of 5 primate species died in 3 years, and 15 were caused by roadkill and 12 were caused by electrocution. And the highest number of primates died in Satchai National Park, which is 14 individuals of primates were died in Laochara National Park. And most mortality records are for Fair's langur, and the lowest record mortality was for rhesus macaque. So we did install an artificial canopy bridge to mitigate this. So to install artificial canopy bridge, we selected Satchai National Park from those 2 forest patches. And as I said before, Satchai National Park is fragmented by Old Dhaka Sylhet Highway, and the length of the road is 1.76 kilometers. And we selected one rope artificial canopy bridge to install canopy bridge in our study site. And to identify the mortality hotspot, we used our previous mortality data, and we also consult local forest staff to select the mortality hotspots, because it's really important to select the spot properly. Otherwise, it will not work. It will not save our primate species. So we selected the mortality hotspot and installed our artificial canopy bridge on 1st November 2020. And we installed 3 artificial canopy bridges. And for bridge 1 and bridge 3, we used polypropylene rope. The grade of the rope was 13 centimeter. And for bridge 2, we used a rubber hose pipe and 100 millimeter satellite dish antenna cable. Though later we also installed a ladder-like rope, but it didn't work well because maybe animals doesn't like it. And for data collection method, after installing the artificial canopy bridge, we wanted to see either the animals are using our artificial canopy bridge or not. So we installed camera traps at one end of each bridge, and we collected data from 5th March of 2021 to 30 October of 2021, and we got total data of 157 camera trap days, and the camera traps took 10-second video clip followed by 2 still photos with 1 second interval between photo and the video. Okay, sorry. And the result was quite satisfying. A total of 1,060 mammals were observed using our artificial canopy bridge, and the highest number of animals using our bridge 1, and the number was 677, and the rest of followed by bridge 2 and bridge 3. Besides 5 primate species, we observed 2 rodent species and 1 carnivore species were using our artificial canopy bridges. And this graph is representing the frequency of using our canopy bridges by animals. And among primates pairs, langur was most frequently used the bridges, followed by cat langur, not than pictal macaque. And we also observed 67 events of Bengal slow lories crossing our bridges. And here we found a significant difference of number of bridge using event between seasons for bridge 1 and bridge 3. Sorry, it's a mistake. Bridge 1 and bridge 3, but we didn't find any kind of significant difference of number of bridge using events between seasons. And we consider our project as a successful because it provided connectivity for at least 8 mammal species among the 6 primate species of Satri National Park. 5 species are using our artificial canopy bridge randomly, but with the exception of the Western Hulu gibbon. And during our study period, we didn't record any kind of electrocution, any kind of record any kind of mortality due to electrocution and roadkill. And our project also benefited the local community because we also hired a local tree climber who changed the battery, the SSD card, so they are also get benefited. And as I said, this study was a pilot project to test the potential of artificial canopy bridge in mitigating mortality of arboreal species on forest of Bangladesh. So I hope it will, our forest department will build more artificial canopy bridges in other forest patches to conserve our primate species. And here are some evidence of animals that were using our artificial canopy bridges. And here is a video of a cute Bengal slow loris using our artificial canopy bridges at night time. And our project is funded by Pandoris EV and Explorer Club grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjan Maria, about the presentation. That was the nice presentation. We can see the slow love is walking, and also that is evidence that has other primates walking on that bridges. Yeah, again, I want to say to the participant, if you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask to our keynote speaker about what they present. And I also, now we end, because Marjan Maria is the last keynote speaker that present about our seminar today. We have one person asking on the chat box that curious about what the frequency of the maintenance of the rope bridges and how scalable is it? Oh, and Prof. Anna, you want to say something?
Did you forget, Chris? Did you forget one speaker?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Mind going at the end.
I'm really sorry. Okay, after that we will hear presentation from Christine. But yeah, we have question in the chat box.
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, maybe Marjan Maria, you want to answer that question?
Yes, certainly. the question is how frequency, what is the frequency of maintenance of the road bridge, and how scalable is it? So to be honest, our artificial canopy bridge, rope bridge, is uh, made of made of rope, polypropylene rope that is used for ship anchoring, and it's it's quite long lasting. And till now it's working. We haven't maintained or changed yet, but I think it will long last for a long time, at least more than 10 years. So it's quite sustainable in the sense of longevity.
Thank you for the answer. How for the participant who asking that, I hope that is clear enough to answer your question. If there anyone else to asking about what Margin Maria present to us, if no, probably we can next to our keynote speaker, that is Chris Sid from Low-Tech Wireless Radio Telemetry. I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, we really are proud to welcoming you to the next presentation. To Chris Sid, this is your time.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here.
Yep, we can see the screen now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for having me. As you mentioned, I am with Low-Tech Wireless. For those of you who haven't heard of Low-Tech, we specialize in telemetry products, related equipment for wildlife tracking. We've been around for 40 years now. It's our 40th anniversary this year. About 15 years ago, we acquired BioTrack in the UK, who Dr. Anna previously mentioned, that they originally started with BioTrack collars on their Loris. And then a few years after that, we also acquired Surtrack out of New Zealand. So we're now all under the Low-Tech brand. So we can offer all sorts of different products. Our products can be found currently in every continent in the world and in every ocean. And we have something out there for pretty much every species, whether it's terrestrial, freshwater, marine, from the largest animals such as elephants and whales to tags as small for use on butterflies and bees. A little bit of history on GPS tracking. The first GPS tracker was placed on a wild moose for the first time in March of 1994. Some of you may have heard the name Art Rogers. He's a bit of a pioneer in wildlife tracking. That's a picture of a very young Art there with that moose. And Art's actually still collaring animals today. He primarily collars caribou in Northern Ontario. So that collar in the picture was a whopping 2.4 kilograms in weight. We now have GPS products that are as small as 1 gram, which is why we're able to put them on things like bumblebees. Technology's changed a lot over the years. Started out with just VHF, then we added GPS. Now we have a lot more specialized products on the market, which enables researchers like you to enhance things for their projects. We have proximity sensors, allows for disease monitoring, contact rates, predator-prey dynamics. It's used quite extensively right now with CWD research in ungulate populations in North America. We have activity sensors. They started out a few years ago as 2D ones, we now have 3-axis accelerometers, as Dr. Anna started using with looking at energy expenditure, things like that. We have camera collars, adds that extra dimension to your study. And for a lot of places where there is controversy about studying animals and collaring animals, some researchers have found it's very useful in public outreach. It helps to show another dimension into the lives of the animal and how it can be used for good in adaptive management techniques, human disturbance impacts, things like that. And we even have solar panels added to some of our products now on collars and even little tags, which help to extend battery life, which is beneficial when you don't have to handle the animal as often to swap out tags and collars. If you can get it to last longer, it adds to your research. You can research that animal longer and less disturbance. Rather than talking more about in-depth in some of these products, I thought I'd share a few of our conservation success stories with you. As a company that sells the product, we don't often hear about the end result. So these are just a few stories that some of our researchers have shared with us, and I thought I'd share some of them with you. So the first story here is about a Arctic fox. It was collared with a Argos telemetry collar. It's a satellite collar. Back in 2017, it was collared, and this fox actually became quite famous for its epic journey. So it left Norway on March 26th of 2018, traveled across the sea ice, and ended up in Ellesmere Island, Canada on June 10th. So you can see the massive journey it went here on this map. It only took 76 days for it to make that huge journey. It traveled over 3,500 kilometers. And because of the collar that they had on this animal, the data that they got from the collar enabled the researchers to track this route. They were able to see how long it took to get from one position to another each time the collar updated to the satellite. And they discovered that this is one of the fastest journeys on record that they've recorded for this species, and one of the longest. In one point of this journey, the fox, this part here right in yellow, actually traveled 155 kilometers in one day. And it averaged over 42 kilometers a day throughout this journey. So it's pretty remarkable. The next story I'd like to share is about the world's rarest flightless bird, the kakapo. The kakapo is found only in New Zealand, and due primarily to the introduction of invasive predator species such as cats, possums, stouts, their population was nearly decimated. In the 1970s, there was only 11 known individuals in the wild. So massive conservation efforts were put in place. They started tracking the kakapo. They ended up translocating them to 3 predator-free islands just off the coast of the mainland. And they started monitoring them with VHF, GPS, camera traps, and it allowed them to discover information about their habitat use, their diet, their mating behaviors. And they found out that they have a really, really poor mating success. They require a very specialized diet during the breeding season. The males have very low sperm counts, so even when there is a successful mating, a lot of the times it's not viable. They have a low egg count. The mothers aren't very good mothers. A lot of the eggs get broken or they aren't incubated properly. So they really needed to add in some human intervention here. So they were able to, because of the use of VHF, camera traps, GPS trackers, they were able to start collecting the eggs from the kakapo. They would incubate them in captivity and then introduce them back to the kakapo. And they discovered that this increased their breeding success a lot. They are also using artificial insemination techniques now. And they're in the process of developing what they call smart eggs, which are eggs that have a little electronic device in them so they can move and make sounds. So the mother will accept the artificial eggs that they place in the time being while they're incubating the eggs in captivity. They're introducing the chicks back to the parents, and they find that when they do this with these eggs that have sound and movement in them, the mother is more accepting of the chicks when they introduce them back, and there's greater success rates there. Their numbers have now increased. As of 2023, there are 247 known kakapos. And every single kakapo is actually tagged with a low-tech device, which is a little bit of a highlight for us. Similar to the kakapo, the New Zealand kiwi, another flightless bird, so it's very susceptible to predation. Their numbers were declining greatly. They found, after they started studying them, that they were having a 2% loss per year in the population, which equates to about 20 kiwi per week. So they started doing more extensive research in them. They started tracking them. They launched something called Operation Nest Egg. So what they discovered is that the kiwi are actually fairly prolific breeders. They can lay 1 or 2 clutches a year, but the chicks are very susceptible to predation, and they only have about a 5% success rate of reaching adulthood. So conservation efforts launched something called Operation Nest Egg, where they're now collecting the eggs, rearing them in captivity, and releasing the chicks into the wild when they're about 1 kilogram in weight. And they found this has increased their survival rates from 5% to over 85%. One of the reasons that they were having a bit of a hard time studying the kiwi and discovering, other than predation, how they can help them, reasons why they might be having problems, is that their nests are really well camouflaged and hard to find. And I'll show you a little video. So without the use of VHF tracking to follow the kiwis and videos, they were having a very difficult time finding nest sites. And you can see from this video why. If I can get this to play, there we go. It's very well camouflaged, virtually undetectable. So you can see as a researcher, if you're walking through the field trying to find these kiwis, trying to find their nest sites, without the use of technology, it would be very, very difficult and very easy to just walk right by that. The last story I'd like to share with you is about a sloth in Costa Rica. We've heard about putting in artificial rope bridges and things to help with these species that are very vulnerable to road traffic, electrocution by hydro wires. This sloth was actually electrocuted trying to cross a power line. Luckily, it was found and brought to the Toucan Rescue Ranch, which is a rehab facility in Costa Rica. They partner closely with another rescue institute, the Sloth Institute. And this sloth was unfortunately had to have her arm amputated after the electrocution, but they were able to successfully rehabilitate her and release her. And a year later, she actually showed up back at the organization to show off her new baby. And you can see in the picture here, just barely, she is equipped with a tracking collar. You can see a bit of the collar hanging down there. So when they do rehabilitate and release them, they are equipped with a tracking device, some VHF, some GPS, depending on what they want to look at. So they can follow individuals and know whether or not they are successful with the release. Jim Latimer was the founder of our company. He was very passionate for wildlife and his dedication to developing innovative ways to help researchers like yourself achieve your goals. Unfortunately, he passed away 2 years ago, but his legacy does live on in his children, who have now taken over running the company, and are as committed as him to helping develop new technologies, new advancements to help researchers with all their goals. And this is a quote of Jim's that I just wanted to share. We at Lowtech believe that the animal knows best. We're dedicated to developing advanced equipment, analytical techniques that, when placed on free-ranging wild animals and fish, provide the world with the knowledge required to scientifically validate and assess the environment from the perspective of the animal. And thank you. Short and sweet.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation from Christine Sid from Lowtech Wireless Radio Telemetry. So again, for the participant, please don't hesitate if you have any question about the presentation that Christine gave to us. But I think I have a question first. What is the current challenge for Lowtech probably to improve the technologies in conservation?
There are so many challenges. There's so many different species out there and so many different research projects on the go. Trying to design something that suits everybody's needs without having to come up with an individual product for each project is very difficult. Some of our products are very set. There's no flexibility in how they're made. But we are able to, in some products, offer some flexibility and design things specifically for certain species. As Dr. Anna said, years ago at BioTrack, we worked with her and we were able to design an antenna that has cayenne pepper actually built in between the layers. So we put a normal layer of heat shrink on the antenna. We coat it with hot cayenne pepper. We put another layer of shrink wrap on top so that if the loris does bite into the antenna, they don't like the taste of it. They remember that. They're not going to destroy the antennas. So designing equipment that is able to withstand actual deployments is quite a challenge.
Thank you. Yeah, Prof. Anna?
I always wonder, because we're always concerned about putting things too big on the animals. And I think of the collars I put on the slender loris and now the collars we're using from you on the slow loris. And the slender loris one still lasted a year. And I always wonder why we can't put those same tiny ones on the slow loris, that why we have to use the bigger ones, or do we have to? And for GPS collars, for example, if there are tiny ones that work on insects, when I've gone to see you guys about slow loris collars, they're so big that we couldn't put them ethically on a slow loris. So I kind of always wondered why the tiny animal ones can't work for slightly larger animals.
A lot of time it has to do with your battery. In general, the smaller the lighter the project, the smaller the battery in it, the less life you're going to get out of it. So a lot of times it's a bit of a drawback. You're going to go to the effort of trapping this animal. In some instances, you have to anesthetize them. If you're lucky enough to have an animal you can handle without having to do that, you can collar them, but you're still handling that animal. You know, you want to reduce it. So you got to weigh the pros and cons of putting a lighter product on that may last a shorter period in the field, or something slightly bigger that's going to last longer. It also depends on the features. The more features you add, generally the bigger and the heavier it's going to get. If you're just VHF, you can get quite tiny and quite a long life. If you want to add in GPS, the product's going to be a little bit heavier, a little bit bigger. Luckily, we now have our 3-axis accelerometer, which is built into the board and actually doesn't add any weight to collars. So if you have an animal that you want to measure activity on, you can add in a collar that has that without having to add another external device and add extra weight. But some of our pinpoint tags, which do GPS, can be made into collars, particularly zip tie collars in that. So that is something you could do. So you're using a smaller tag. They do have, depending on the product, some of them as long, if not a longer life than some of the collars we offer. So yeah, that would be something that you could explore with Danelle and say, hey, we use this collar, we got this long a life. Can we use it for this species? You guys are the experts in knowing your species. So, you know, as a general rule, you always hear that 5% body weight for collaring. If you can go lighter, by all means go lighter, because the lighter you go, it's going to be better for the animal in the long run. So yeah, absolutely. If something smaller worked for you for different species, there's no reason why you can't. Unless perhaps, you know, on one species, you used a cable tie or a wire collar or something, and it can't be used on a different species for reasons they need extra padding, things like that. In which case, sometimes it might be better to move to a different product instead of adding all kinds of things to an existing product. But yeah, if we can work with the researcher and develop something, you know, modify something, we absolutely will. It's just in some instances we can't, and you know, certain products are better than others.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Chris, we have also someone asked on the chat box, is there any tracking device that can go under the skin? Or how do we go around the problem animals changes their body, like say size and shape?
We do have some implantable products. Primarily they're used in fish. We have a lot of products that are used in our freshwater, our marine departments, but we have used some successfully in mammals. I believe we've got some implants right now that are being used in orangutans. We also have a project with brown snakes in Guam, and he's using implantable trackers. So a lot of it depends on the species. Some people view implants as too invasive. Some people view collars as too invasive. So, you know, we usually defer to the researcher, you know, what you're comfortable doing, what size weight, things like that. And if we have a product suitable, then wonderful. But we do have implants that are being used and out there.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that can answer your question. And yeah, thank you, Chris, again about the presentation. Now we open discuss for any participant. If you have still have question for all of our keynote speaker. And also we will share the social media, especially Instagram, from all of our keynote speaker on the chat box. So if you have any more question, you can probably message them. I hope that is okay for all of our keynote speaker. So we can keep contact each other in the social media, and we can like see like the progress, like any update from all of our keynote speaker. Is there any question from participant for our keynote speaker? I think while we waiting, oh, we have one. What is the best recommended weight for tracker use on the tarsier? I think that is for Chris.
And Priscilla and Safi may also know that because they've been doing some work on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can comment on that. So a few years back in Kinabatangan, we used collars for tarsier, also from your company. I don't remember exactly the weight, but just to give an idea, it fits my little pinky. So it was so small. I cannot remember exactly, but that was the size. So it was really, really small. Yeah.
And I remember we had experience with collars for tarsiers that they had to be metal because they're such strong teeth. They were the only collars I ever used that were metal because they were biting through everything. And they also can turn their head 180 degrees. So it has to be a certain width so it doesn't affect them turning their head.
Yeah, we have the same issue with the squirrel here, actually. That's why we have to use the metal collar. And even the metal collar, they managed to remove them. So we're still trying to figure out what's going on. But yeah, strong teeth like tarsier, yeah, it's a bit of a problem.
I hope that is answer your question, Jalim, or any keynote speaker want to add something? Okay, is there anyone want to ask about our open discussion now? Is there anyone want to ask again to our keynote speaker? This is the time for you before we close, and probably I hope you're not leaving. Yeah, we will taking pictures together. I hope you can open your video for all of the participants. It's okay if you're not, but we want to like capture of this picture so we can see like again we can like attend it in any seminar later. Yeah, so we will have a 3 session of it because we have 35 participants now, including the keynote speaker and admin. So I will counting in the first screen on my screen. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm next to the second screen. I didn't know that is you or not, but please keep smiling. 1, 2, 3, and one screen again. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, sweet. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for our keynote speaker to giving the really amazing presentation. And thank you to all the participants who coming to our seminar today. I hope this information can like really helpful to us to like doing research in many places, and also share the information to our friends, to our like any people that really interested in the conservation or not in conservation, because this information is not for us who working in the conservation, but also for the other people. Is like we need to educate them, like Priscilla presentation or about the bridges or something like that. So I hope you've enjoyed the seminar today. So I think I will close the seminar today, or anyone want to say something? Okay, thank you. And
Thank you,
I hope you have a
everyone.
lovely day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I will leave the room, yeah? So thank you.